In Hollywood, stardom is not only about securing roles or collecting awards, it is also about fighting against the flow of time with faces that seem untouched by age. While people rarely speak about it openly, the hidden demand to appear forever young is something many male stars quietly deal with, as their polished images are caught on camera behind the scenes. There are trips to surgeons, needles of Botox, and treatments that sometimes go too far. Many assume beauty surgery belongs only to women, but that idea is far from true. From classic movie legends to present-day television favorites, many famous men have altered their looks, some with results so subtle they go unnoticed, while others change so drastically that even they struggle. To recognize their own reflection here are 20 of the most surprising cosmetic makeovers among male stars in Hollywood. Some managed to hold on to youth with great success, while others left us stunned, wondering if it is really them. You might hardly recognize them now. If these transformations leave you stunned, leave a 1 below, and if you feel there is nothing shocking, drop a 0. Also, remember to like, subscribe, and enjoy the video to support the channel. I am excited to read your thoughts. In the comments, number 20. Burt Lancaster, with his square jaw, sharp eyes, and a body that looked sculpted from stone. Whether playing an acrobat in the circus or a heroic figure in Hollywood films, he carried an air of strength, calm and undeniable. Charm. His face, like a timeless statue, appeared free from any extra details. Yet behind that perfect look were quiet aesthetic choices carefully masked by his skill and commanding presence in 1947, when Burt Lancaster was still new in Hollywood. He had ear-pinning surgery, a small yet meaningful change. His slightly sticking out ears, though subtle, could be highlighted strongly by the camera lens to better match his bold, angular face. He adjusted them just enough to improve his look while keeping his natural masculine style. This was the first step in a quiet makeover that would define the lasting image of a legend, not ending there in the early 1950s. Burt Lancaster also refined his smile, one of his most magnetic features on screen. His natural teeth were small and slightly stained, which sometimes made him look older than his actual years, choosing porcelain veneers, a fairly new option. Back then, he gained a bright, even and glowing smile that shone perfectly under stage lights. This improved smile not only gave him confidence, but also made his romantic, serious, and heroic characters more believable and attractive, securing his place as a top leading man by 1967, as signs of age began to appear around his eyes and across his forehead. Burt Lancaster chose an endoscopic brow lift, a method that kept his eyes sharp and lively without changing his true expression. In the mid-1970s, he went further, trying thread facelift techniques. This modern approach offered facial renewal without long recovery, making it perfect for a star at the height of his career, always moving with a packed filming schedule. Burt Lancaster once said this profession is about illusion, and he followed that belief not only on the screen, but also in how he quietly cared for his image, simple and modest. Burt was skilled at adjusting his looks to meet the expectations of the public, an artist gifted not just with acting talent, but also with the ability to keep the timeless glow Hollywood required. Number 19. Sylvester Stallone, the unstoppable muscle legend of Hollywood. Rocky Balboa and John Rambo. Two iconic roles, two sides of the same man, a man who can take a hit, rise again, and go head-to-head with fate, but even action heroes cannot overpower time for Stallone. Aging is not an enemy. It is a rival that deserves respect, and in true fashion, he does not run from it or deny its presence. He meets it the only way he knows, with grit, unwavering discipline, and a few carefully chosen upgrades along the way. Since birth, Stallone has faced a serious challenge: mild paralysis on the left side of his face caused by a birth injury. It gave him his trademark deep, rough voice and distinct way of speaking, but it also limited how many expressions he could show, so unlike many stars who chase surgery just for looks. Stallone had a very practical reason to gain more control of his face for acting in 1975 after a severe injury while filming Death Race 2000. He had his first surgery, to repair part of his jaw muscle, a quiet yet crucial turning point in his career, after Rocky exploded in 1976 and Rambo followed in the early 80s. Stallone began adjusting his looks to match the demands of the big screen. He did not completely change. His look only made small adjustments to keep his tough, masculine style while giving it a cleaner camera. Ready edge, a bit of jawline shaping for sharper lines, light work on his forehead and hairline to slow the marks of age in close-up scenes. By the 2000s, fans could clearly notice the smooth skin, the defined jaw, and the bright, perfect smile. Obvious signs of careful cosmetic work done with skill, never overdone, never lacking. Unlike some stars who avoid or deny the subject, Stallone is open and straight in a 1992 interview. He joked, "I am like a car. I need regular maintenance." It was humorous but also truthful for Stallone. His look is not simple vanity, it is part of his craft. When he returned in The Expendables in 2010, his face looked a bit tighter, yet his presence stayed the same. A battle-tested legend still unwilling to give in to time, for Stallone staying sharp is not about deceiving anyone. It is a smart way to remain active and keep the spark alive. Number 18. Robert Redford, a living piece of golden Hollywood spirit with his sunlit, messy hair, steady eyes, and a beauty that always seemed just out of reach. On screen, he never needed many words. One glance could bring silence and full focus, yet behind that natural presence was a careful plan to protect his aura, quiet, modest, and never extreme. Unlike many around him, Redford never sought dramatic changes. Instead, he chose a softer route, one that matched his calm acting style. Starting in the mid-1980s, he made small adjustments, a touch on the lower eyelids to reduce signs of tiredness, a light lift along the jaw to keep his profile sharp for close-ups. Each choice had purpose, not to reinvent, but to preserve, to hold on to the essence of who he was instead of creating something unfamiliar. He never pushed it too far. No skin pulled unnaturally tight, no heavy fillers to alter his expression, even as time etched lines into his face. They carried a beauty that was purely Redford, real, dignified, and proof. That age can be strength, not weakness. In a rare interview, when asked about cosmetic work, Redford only smiled and said everyone has the right to do what they feel is necessary. Plain words, yet filled with meaning. His look is not a mask. It is the outcome of mindful care, balance, and an honest sense of his own worth. Redford's wrinkles have not been erased. They remain, telling the story of a life truly lived, not something to hide, but something to respect. And that is why, even as the years move on, Robert Redford still stands as a symbol, not only of timeless beauty, but also of true elegance. Number 17. Bruce Jenner. Before becoming Caitlyn, was the very picture of American masculinity, an Olympic gold medalist, a symbol of power, speed, and unshakable resolve. He embodied the height of athletic success and was seen as a living example of both physical and mental strength, a hero admired by many, yet even the man once called the fastest in the world could not escape the steady passage of time, or the deeper changes within. In 1984, after stepping away from competitive sports, Bruce quietly started refining his appearance with small cosmetic procedures, hoping to preserve the magazine cover image that had once made him famous. But as always, time left its mark. By the mid-1990s, he chose to have a nose job, one that, in his own words, did not go as planned. Instead of avoiding the subject or stepping back from fame, Bruce spoke about it openly on the Kardashian reality show, admitting with honesty, "I had a botched nose job and I need to have it redone." It was a rare display of honesty, raw and fearless, in a culture that often expects men to remain untouched by cosmetic work. Bruce's open attitude felt refreshing. It started a real discussion about self-image, vulnerability, and acceptance. His choices were not just about surface courage. They showed a deeper strength, the readiness to admit imperfections and embrace an evolving identity before the eyes of the world. In 2009, Bruce drew Headlines by openly having facial surgery, a daring and unusual step that only increased respect for his openness and determination. But in 2014 came a truly defining chapter. He underwent a tracheal shave, a procedure that meant much more than appearance. It signaled the start of a personal transformation, and for many across the globe, it stood as a symbol of courage, truth, and the right to live as one truly is. While the media swirled and the public speculated, Bruce's calm determination spoke louder than any coverage. If time is an enemy, none can escape. Bruce Jenner did not just face it. He confronted it with courage, honesty, and deep self-acceptance. The path from Bruce to Caitlyn is far more than a story of outward change. It is a powerful story of identity, courage, and the search for authenticity from Olympic champion to a symbol of personal truth. Caitlyn's journey stands as proof that real strength is not in clinging to the past, but in accepting who you truly are. And that may be the greatest legacy of all, and so in the early 1990s. Number 16. Mickey Rourke made a daring choice that stunned Hollywood. He stepped away from acting to chase a career in professional boxing. It was a decision that revealed his restless nature and his need to test himself in a different arena, but the ring took its toll. Years of fighting left his face marked and damaged, leading him to seek plastic surgery to repair the harm. What started as reconstruction soon shifted into a wave of cosmetic treatments that reshaped the features that once made him unforgettable. What began as urgent medical work eventually turned into repeated cosmetic attempts that changed the face fans had long admired in trying to regain what he had lost. He trusted his look to the wrong surgeon, later admitting, "I went to the wrong guy to put my face back together." The results were shocking. His tough bad boy charm gave way to a face that was almost unrecognizable, fueling endless gossip and harsh attention from the public. Yet through it, Mickey stayed firm, unapologetic and brutally honest, refusing to let others shape his story. But the journey did not stop there. Instead of restoring his once glamorous look, the surgeries left him looking nearly like someone else by the late 90s and early 2000s. The face that had once filled magazine covers was drastically altered. Mickey himself admitted with striking honesty, "I went to see someone who messed it up." Yet rather than retreat or hide in shame, he faced the world with bold ease and his trademark edge, carrying his scars not as regrets, but as proof of a life lived fully in defiance of Hollywood standards. What is remarkable is that Mickey Rourke's changed face did not end his career. It reshaped it. In fact, it became central to his unforgettable comeback in The Wrestler, a role that won him wide critical praise. The scars, the worn features, the raw truth. They did not take away from his acting, they enriched it. His face turned into a canvas of pain, endurance, and hidden truths, perfectly matching the broken yet strong soul of his character. As Rourke once said, "My face tells a story. It is not always beautiful, but it is real. And that is what makes him different. An artist who does not just live for the image, but moves through every rough chapter of his journey, embracing pain, loss, and the strength of beginning again." Number 15. John Wayne, a name that captures the very spirit of the American West with a powerful stride and a voice as deep and steady as the wind rolling across wide plains. He stood as the lasting symbol of courage and resolve, never backing down on screen or in life. But even a legend as tough as Wayne had quiet help behind the curtain, not to change himself, but to preserve the image of the Duke that audiences worldwide had come to love in 1948. At the height of his fame, John Wayne noticed the early signs of hair loss at a time when cosmetic work for men was hardly spoken of. He quietly had a hair transplant. One of the first known in Hollywood, the method was simple, compared to today, and had its flaws. But it was enough to let him keep wearing his trademark cowboy hat without drawing notice to what was beneath. For Wayne, his appearance was not mere vanity. It was an essential part of his screen identity. By the mid-1960s, age had begun to weigh on his eyesight. His upper eyelids drooped, making it harder for him to follow movement on set, especially during tense gunfight scenes that required accuracy to fix this. He chose a small eyelid surgery it was, never about chasing youth. It was only to restore his sight so he could keep staring down villains with the same fearless gaze of a man who never stepped back in the final stage of his life. Wayne decided on a few more quiet procedures. A facelift. Around his neck and lower jaw, the places where age had shown most clearly but true to his nature. It was never about becoming someone else. It was about ensuring John Wayne remained. John Wayne, strong, rugged, perhaps with a few less lines, yet still, the unshakable figure audiences had always loved. He was not trying to beat time. He only wanted to stretch the moment when fans could still see their hero standing tall as always. Number 14. Tom Cruise, with the million-dollar smile, the piercing stare, and that unique running style you could spot from a shadow on screen. He bends the laws of physics and time off screen. Not much different since Cruise's age seems more like a suggestion than fact, whether speeding down a highway or hanging. From the side of a skyscraper, he still looks and moves like a true action hero, so flawless, it makes you wonder if a bit of magic plays a role in his earliest parts. Tom Cruise did not yet have the smile that could land fighter jets looking back. At The Outsiders in 1983, his teeth were slightly crooked with a yellowish shade, a perfectly ordinary smile. But only 3 years later in Top Gun, everything was different. Cruise lit up the screen with a perfect set of straight, bright, white teeth. Pure Hollywood. Those porcelain veneers not only improved his smile, they helped shape the iconic image of the charming pilot that became a permanent piece of movie history over time. Fans started noticing slight yet steady changes. His nose looked more refined, his jawline sharper, and his skin unusually tight and smooth, almost as if gravity skipped him. Though Cruise has never confirmed anything openly, many cosmetic experts suggest he has likely used Botox fillers and maybe thread lifts, all carried out with the same precision as his daring stunts, subtle, careful, and never excessive as always. Cruise dismisses the speculation, giving credit instead to a strict diet, hard training, and his deep faith in Scientology. Maybe it is true, maybe it is not, but one fact remains at 62. Tom Cruise is still performing his own death-defying stunts, still running like a man half his age, and still commanding every scene, just like in the beginning. And even if there are a few hidden tricks, audiences cannot help but admire a man who seems to bend time itself. Number 13. Dean Martin. The king of cool always appeared on screen with his smooth, velvet voice, captivating smile, and effortless charm, as though he had stepped right out of a classic Vegas lounge, yet beneath that easy appeal, there were quiet changes that most people never noticed. Born Dino Crocetti, Dean's early years were marked by a larger nose, which, while distinctive, gave him a slightly uneven look on camera. This led to one of the earliest adjustments that shaped the refined, timeless image people know today by 1953, as his partnership with Jerry Lewis was soaring. Dean Martin quietly chose a nose reduction surgery. The outcome delivered a more balanced appearance, keeping his signature Italian charm, but making him far more suited for the big screen as he moved into his 50s, determined to hold on to his leading man magnetism. Martin went further. He had a facelift focused on his face and neck, along with procedures to smooth the lines around his eyes, keeping his look fresh and stage-ready beneath the glaring lights of Hollywood. His makeup artist once remarked, "Dean always looks as if he just enjoyed a full 8-hour sleep and drank pure spring water throughout the day." Of course, this was all part of a carefully crafted illusion. Sammy Davis Jr., his close friend and frequent co-star, often teased him about his beauty upgrades, but Martin himself never admitted to anything. For him, the only thing that mattered was keeping up the image of the smooth, effortless gentleman. Audiences adored what happened in private could stay private. Yet whispers have long suggested Dean Martin was the mastermind of a secret club where stars met to talk about forbidden subjects, and perhaps even maintain a black book containing delicate dealings, though no proof has ever surfaced. Nobody dares dismiss the possibility. Could it be that Martin was not only the symbol of grace and luxury, but also the guardian of Hollywood's most shadowed secrets? The mystery remains alive, sparking endless curiosity about how deep his sway in Hollywood truly reached. Number 12. Al Pacino. His voice rough like wind brushing against forgotten memories, his eyes heavy with countless unspoken stories, and his presence so commanding it convinced the world Michael Corleone was living, breathing reality. He is more than an actor, he is a symbol. Humble, unrefined, yet magnetic whenever he appears on screen. But even the Godfather cannot escape the march of time, and like a careful strategist, Pacino neither hides it nor denies it. Instead, he makes measured choices small, adjustments that let him continue the game on his terms during the first 2 decades of his journey. From The Godfather to Serpico, Pacino avoided cosmetic changes. His hair thinned naturally, dark circles deepened across his eyes, and his face bore the full burden of time and memory. This authenticity only strengthened the audience's devotion. They admired his refusal to conceal age, his quiet honesty, his somber elegance. But as the early 1990s arrived, a shift began, gentle, not extreme, yet impossible. To ignore, Pacino's hair seemed thicker, richer. A striking difference from the tired, thinning look seen in Dog Day Afternoon. Many experts agree this was the likely outcome of a subtle hair transplant. As the 2000s unfolded, subtle refinements began, shaping his features too. His jawline grew slightly firmer, his neck smoother, softening the signs of age, but always done with restraint, maintaining his natural presence. Perhaps most striking was a delicate lift of the upper eyelids, refreshing his gaze, keeping it sharp and expressive instead of shadowed by time. Yet Pacino never sought to be a beauty idol or a classic matinee heartthrob. He knew his magnetism was not bound to flawless skin or eternal youth. His allure was the truth etched in his face. The fatigue of a life lived fully with no disguises. Every small adjustment carried one intent: to serve the character. So audiences still saw Michael Corleone, Tony Montana, or Shylock, not some altered stranger in a city of polished faces. Born from the same surgeon's chair, Pacino stood apart, a whisper, subtle, uncatchable, and impossible to imitate. Number 11. Burt Reynolds, with his trademark mustache, playful eyes, and the irresistible charm that made you believe he could cross the nation. Fueled only by a grin at the height of his fame, he defined American charisma, rugged, witty, and tinged with mischief. Yet like the sleek car in Smokey and the Bandit, his image demanded regular care. And while Burt often laughed about the myth of his persona, he worked carefully to preserve it. Understanding that the polished exterior mattered just as much as the mischievous spirit beneath it began in the mid-1970s, when Reynolds suffered an injury while filming Deliverance, the very role that vaulted him into stardom. A fractured jaw required surgical repair, but the recovery altered the contours of his face, softening the sharp masculine lines that had defined him as a Hollywood symbol. Unwilling to accept the change, he turned to jawline cosmetic surgery to restore the rugged presence that had become his hallmark. A daring choice at a time when few men in Hollywood dared speak of such measures. Then came his hair, perhaps his most famous trait after the mustache. By 1978, signs of thinning appeared, and Reynolds pursued a hair transplant, though the technique was still primitive, leaving scars that he often masked with hats or wigs. Yet unlike others, he faced it with humor, often tipping a cowboy hat on live television. And making himself the punchline through the 1980s, he underwent 2 facelifts, one in 1984 and another in 1988, to hold on to youth. Though later, he confessed the operations left his face feeling somewhat stiff on screen. Still, he stood apart as one of the rare male stars who openly joked about his cosmetic path with trademark wit. He once remarked, "Him like a drum, stretch me and I still make noise," and no matter how tight the skin was pulled, the drumbeat of Burt Reynolds endured, echoing. The spirit of a golden age, daring, magnetic, and unforgettable. If the hidden transformations of Hollywood's leading men caught you off guard, tap like to show us you want more stories like this. Share the video with movie lovers or anyone curious about Tinseltown secrets, and subscribe with notifications on so you never miss the next reveal. Number 10. Cary Grant, the very picture of the ideal gentleman, smooth, witty, and effortlessly magnetic, seemed born to charm every room. Yet the path from Archie Leach to Hollywood legend was one of deliberate reinvention, shaped by both choice and necessity. When the young Archie arrived in Los Angeles in the late 1920s, his natural charisma was undeniable, but studios also saw areas for refinement. The first step was his smile. In the early 1930s, he underwent an extensive dental overhaul, including jaw realignment and a brand new set of teeth, transforming a modest grin into the radiant, confident smile that would soon captivate audiences at a time when flawless teeth were practically a ticket to stardom. This single change marked a turning point. Still, Grant's pursuit of polish didn't stop there by 1957. Now in his early 50s, yet still cast opposite actresses half his age, he quietly chose an upper eyelid lift. Years of harsh film lights had left his eyes heavy with fatigue, and though his soulful gaze remained magnetic, it risked betraying his age. The subtle procedure brought back a sense of alertness without altering his essence, allowing him to retain the timeless allure that audiences adored. Alfred Hitchcock, who directed him in several classics, immediately noticed the refreshed look, but in keeping with the quiet dignity of old Hollywood, he never said a word. On it openly instead. Cary's dear friend actress, Katharine Hepburn, likened his attention to his looks to caring for a treasured vintage car. Just a small tune-up and everything ran smooth again. That thought summed up Grant's philosophy toward his image: always refined, always timeless, always touched with just the right detail. Number 9. John Travolta, the disco lights, the legendary dance moves, and that signature hair that once owned every dance floor. He is far more than Danny Zuko from Grease. He is a lasting emblem of an age when wild hair and daring fashion set the rules of cool. But time always keeps moving, and even for someone like Travolta, keeping hold of that glow of yesterday required a few quiet tweaks made in his way on his terms. Since his 20s, Travolta fought against a retreating hairline. Under the bright stage lights of the 80s, he became among the first Hollywood names to risk trying hair transplants, a daring choice when the process was still very new. The faint scars that linger still mark that struggle. Yet the reward was clear enough hair to protect the legend of the Disco King for Travolta. It went beyond appearance. It was tied to confidence, like the spotlight hair had to be ready to shine at the right instant. By the 90s, as he staged his big return in Pulp Fiction, Travolta chose not to mask his thinning hair any longer. Instead, he made it a statement. The slicked back look, sharp with attitude and matched with his fierce stare, grew into a key feature of his renewed identity. But as his 50s arrived, time seemed to pick up pace. That was when Travolta again leaned on modern aids, quiet facelifts, refined hair transplants, and advanced skin care, all meant to keep his face ready for the camera and his presence sharp. For the red carpet, Travolta has never outright admitted to cosmetic work, but he has never needed to. One moment he posts a casual shot of his bare head on Instagram, and the next he walks into a premiere with a full polished style. For him, looks are not about hiding, but about the show. Like a skilled illusionist, he knows the crowd need not glimpse the tricks, only believe the magic is still alive. Number 8. Kirk Douglas, the unforgettable vision of Spartacus, with his cut jaw, his fierce eyes, and his unshakable spirit. On screen, he was the eternal fighter, a man who would never bend. Yet even Spartacus must one day meet the quiet hand of time. Born in 1916, Douglas not only lived long but also held on to his commanding presence for decades, pushing back the marks of age with his trademark grit. The key was not only good food and steady work, but also the soft hand of aesthetic science. Though never confirmed, many in the trade believed he had a light lift and work around the eyes starting in the 70s when action roles kept calling. Another rumor centered on that famous chin dimple. Some swore it was lightly enhanced to sharpen the focus, while others said it was nature untouched. Either way, it became a symbol not just of Kirk, but of a whole age of screen heroes. His choices were not about chasing fads, but about protecting his place as a steady model of manhood in a shifting film world. By 1975, nearing 60, Douglas had his first lift, slight but strong. It sharpened his jaw and neck, yet left his battle-hardened look intact. For as he knew, a warrior must never seem to sag under the weight of his armor. What set him apart was his candor. In a 1988 talk, he said, "Everyone does it. I am just more open about it than most. That is Kirk, fearless in war and just as daring in Hollywood salons. Through time, he chose more than one touch-up, brow lifts and eyelid work that kept his look strong and fresh." By the 90s, he carried an air that could only be called unstoppable. His son Michael often teased that Kirk would grab any tool at hand to keep his career sharp and his image shining. Number 7. Kenny Rogers, with his leathered voice, his kind smile, and the aura of a seasoned card player, was the heart of country music. A true icon who never leaned on glitter, only a guitar and a soulful song to win a crowd. He knew the worth of timing, knowing when to play and when to fold. Yet when it came to his own look, Kenny once took a gamble, and the odds did not fall his way. In the early 90s, stepping into his 50s, Rogers chose to refresh his face, hoping to mirror the polish of a veteran star. At first, the shifts were soft, a lift around the eyes to erase the wear of long tours. Fans thought he just seemed more at ease. But soon came a lift and other changes that altered him more deeply. The tender warmth in his face gave way to a taut and rigid frame that many felt no longer matched the man they knew. What stood out was his honesty. In a blunt 2006 talk, he said, "I had work on my eyes and a lift. It started well, then went too far." He even laughed that he looked stuck in surprise, that wit rooted. In truth, only drew his fans closer. Though he was not fully pleased with the result, he carried no spite. For Kenny, the look was his own call, one he faced without remorse. He knew in cards and in life, not every hand brings a win, but you play on with poise. That outlook, his candor, his modesty, and his nerve to own his steps made Kenny Rogers an eternal star. He once sang, "You must know when to hold them and when to fold them." And even if he pressed too far in the mirror game, he never lost the truth that made him cherished. That warm voice, unshaken, a face refined yet still full of soul, and above all, a man who lived with the same honesty as the tales he sang, true to himself. Always. Number 6. Simon Cowell, the man who built a fortune by dashing young hopes with a glance and a sharp word on American Idol, became the symbol of blunt truth. His look, the lifted brow, the cold wit, made him the icon of ruthless judgment. Contestants trembled, fans tuned in, and his fame as TV's harshest voice was sealed. But away from bright lights and cheering crowds, Simon too faced the mirror. Behind the sure stride lay a man wrestling with age fame and the demand to look flawless. In the early 2000s, he stepped on screen with a near untouched, faced the plain black shirt, the hint of chest hair, a mask of stern control that no sob could shake. This image became his badge, yet time leaves its mark. By 2008, his brow held still a clear sign of Botox, and in his style, he did not hide it. He laughed it off with dry humor, saying, "Every friend I know has tried it." Simon kept altering his look through eyelid work, facelifts, and fillers. By 2019, his face had shifted so much, fans joked he looked carved from wax, far from the blunt judge they recalled. Even Simon owned up, saying, "I probably went too far. At one point, I barely knew myself." That truth touched many who saw the weight he carried behind his sharp tongue. Lately, Simon has shared that he stopped Botox and cut back on cosmetic tweaks, turning, instead, to clean food and natural skincare. This new path brings a fresher look and shows a deeper peace with himself. Now Simon still holds the wit and blunt edge that made him a legend, yet with more balance and sincerity, he proves it is never too late to find yourself again and accept who you are, even under bright lights. Number 5. Carrot Top, famous for his blazing red hair, wild props, and boundless antics, has long been a comic staple. In the 90s, Scott Carrot Top Thompson was the thin, freckled prankster with a clumsy charm and a gift for laughing at his own expense. By the early 2000s, though fans saw a striking change, his lean shape swelled into a buff build, almost cartoonish like Popeye after eating spinach sparking. Questions about what had shifted and why his face grew tighter, glossier and sharper, almost like a Vegas star. Rumors spread about steroids and cosmetic work. Carrot Top brushed it off, blaming bad makeup, while experts pointed to brow lifts, eyelid, tweaks, and cheek implants. The change was so bold it briefly outshone his jokes. Yet, in his cheeky style, Carrot Top embraces it, filling Vegas halls and poking fun at his look on stage. In comedy, it is often safer to mock others than yourself, but Carrot Top shows that turning the laugh on you is the greatest punchline. Number 4, Joe Biden admired, or not has clearly aged. But his changes began long before the Oval Office. Back in the disco days, his hair vanished quicker than bipartisan trust. By his 30s, Biden faced a shrinking hairline. Refusing to go bald in Congress, he chose early hair transplants, fighting time strand by strand. The methods then were clumsy, like an old tape, but they gave him passable coverage. As the science advanced, so did his hair. By his vice presidency, his locks looked thicker and more real. Careful dental fixes turned his once uneven grin into a bright, steady smile, adding polish to his image. Small eyelid work helped keep his gaze sharp in debates. Together, these touches built the look known today. Yet even with those shifts, he has seldom drawn backlash. Perhaps because his choices stayed quiet, or perhaps because voters had larger battles to fight than his looks. And so ends the tale of 20 striking male stars whose faces turned in unexpected ways. Cosmetic work is more than surface change. It mirrors the heavy weight in show business to stay perfect and timeless. From small touch-ups to bold surgeries, each journey carries resolve and private trade-offs fans rarely see, agree or not. The fact remains these changes shaped the dazzling, shifting face of Hollywood number 3, Barry Manilow. The voice behind Mandy and countless ballads gave the world its soundtrack in the 70s as years rolled. He also reshaped himself without dimming his shine. In the mid-80s, nearing 40, he started gentle edits, a slight nose shift, and jaw tune, so the stage lights still adored him. He remained Barry, only sharper and ready for Copacabana through the 90s and early 2000s. The touches grew clearer, higher, brows, fuller cheeks, smoother glow, and a smile with quiet mystery. He never confessed. Instead, he joked it was sleep or luck. Some magic is better left unsolved. When his face seemed too still, Barry never argued. He kept singing, crafting songs, and moving hearts. Does it matter if a face stiffens when the voice still stirs the soul? His tone may have mellowed and his look refined, yet Barry Manilow never lost himself. He stands as musician icon and proof that what lasts most is the feeling left in his fans, and no surgeon could ever craft that. Number 2. Robert Mitchum stood as the very image of cool with a husky voice, a steady stare, and a presence that needed no extra effort. In a time when others pushed emotion, he held audiences with a glance or a smirk. He was the tough man defined. By restraint and whatever help he sought in looks, it was quiet in line with his nature, never loud or showy. When he rose in the 40s, his raw masculine air drew studios, yet one flaw, his nose seemed too large and threw off balance. So in 1947, he allowed a light trim of shape, not a reinvention, just a gentle fix to blend with his strong jaw. By the 50s, already a star, some urged him to lift his eyelids to erase the drowsy cast. He refused flatly. Those lids were his mark, the sleepy magnet that drew people in, and time proved him right. The droop became a lure, a mystery born of weariness and charm. As the late 60s brought age, he accepted a few soft tweaks to guard his jaw against sag, yet each move was minor. A doctor said, it was like greasing an old gear, not rebuilding a new one. Mitchum never hunted glamour. He held what he needed within a figure of grit, mystery, and truth, untouched by the glare of fashion. That was Robert Mitchum, a man who spoke little, yet always, commanded his style. He felt no urge to chase youth or seek bold changes. He held on to the essence that made him iconic, steady calm, and full of quiet charisma. He never bent to please the crowd. Instead, with each role, he slowed the march of time, proving the weight of a true legend. Think of Clark Gable, and at once you recall the piercing eyes, the composed presence, and the smile that lit Gone with the Wind. His Rhett Butler remains a symbol of timeless allure, capturing the dreams of countless women of his era. Yet hidden behind that flawless charm lay a tale of struggle and transformation that shaped the man into a star. When Gable first came to Hollywood in the late 20s, MGM saw promise, but also flaws. They knew changes were needed, and they were not small. Stricken with gum disease, Gable lost nearly all his natural teeth, replaced by a full set of dentures. That dazzling even grin became the key to his bold, leading man image. In 1932, he went further, choosing ear surgery to fix his slightly protruding ears. Incredibly, the work was done without general anesthesia, showing the steel that defined him as both man and actor. His resolve only added to the aura of toughness that carried him through screens and into history, showing the era's belief that real men should bear pain without flinching. Gable's grit through the ordeal only sharpened the image of strength and masculinity that fans admired, cementing his place as Hollywood's ultimate leading man. His drive to refine his look helped shape the rugged yet magnetic persona that still defines him. To the world number one, Clark Gable was pure masculine charm, raw power, and irresistible appeal. Few realize, though, that he stood among the early trailblazers of subtle cosmetic changes in Hollywood. So next time you hear Rhett Butler speak that timeless line, frankly, my dear, I don't give a damn. Picture him slipping out his dentures before riding into the sunset. That perfect smile we cherish as cinematic. Magic was also born of hidden battles, perseverance, and private transformation. A truth that deepens the legend even more. So what do you make of these hidden journeys? Did any star leave you surprised or almost unrecognizable? Share your thoughts. In the comments, I would love to hear them. And if you enjoyed uncovering these Hollywood secrets, be sure to like and share so your friends can discover them too. Thank you for taking this journey with me into the untold side of stardom. I look forward to seeing you again in the next videos filled with more revelations.